One morning, when Gregor Samsa woke from troubled dreams, he found himself transformed in his bed into a horrible vermin. He lay on his armor-like back, and if he lifted his head a little, he could see his brown belly, slightly domed and divided by arches into stiff sections. The bedding was hardly able to cover it and seemed ready to slide off any moment. His many legs, pitifully thin compared with the size of the rest of him, waved about helplessly as he looked. "What's happened to me?" he thought. It wasn't a dream. His room, a proper human room, although a little too small, lay peacefully between its four familiar walls. A collection of textile samples lay spread out on the table Samsa was a traveling salesman, and above it there hung a picture that he had recently cut out of an illustrated magazine and housed in a nice gilded frame. It showed a lady fitted out with a fur hat and fur boa who sat upright, raising a heavy fur muff that covered the whole of her lower arm towards the viewer. Gregor then turned to look out the window at the dull weather. Drops of rain could be heard hitting the pane, which made him feel quite sad. How about if I sleep a little bit longer and forget all this nonsense? He thought, but that was something he was unable to do, because he was used to sleeping on his right, and in his present state couldn't get into that position. However hard he threw himself onto his right, he always rolled back to where he was. He must have tried it 100 times, shut his eyes so that he wouldn't have to look at the floundering legs, and only stopped when he began to feel a mild, dull pain there that he had never felt before. Oh, God! He thought, what a strenuous career it is that I've chosen. Traveling day in and day out. Doing business like this takes much more effort than doing your own business at home. And on top of that, there's the curse of traveling. Worries about making train connection. Bad and irregular contact with different people all the time, so that you can never get to know anyone or become friendly with them. It can all go to hell. He felt a slight itch up on his belly, pushed himself slowly up on his back towards the headboard so that he could lift his head better, found where the itch was, and saw that it was covered with lots of little white spots, which he didn't know what to make of. And when he tried to feel the place with one of his legs, he drew it quickly back, because as soon as he touched it, he was overcome by a cold shudder. He slid back into his former position. Getting up early all the time, he thought. It makes you stupid. You've got to get enough sleep. Other traveling salesmen live a life, for instance. Whenever I go back to the guest house during the morning tour of luxury, I ought to just try that with my boss. I'd get kicked out on the spot. But who copy out the contract? These gentlemen are always still sitting there eating their breakfast. Knows. Maybe that would be the best thing for me. If I didn't have my parents to think about, I'd have given them my notice a long time ago. I'd have gone up to the boss and told, well, there's still some hope. Once heed him just what I think. Tell him everything. I would let him know just what I feel. Fall right off his deck. And it's a funny sort of business to be sitting up there at your desk, talking down at your subordinates from up there, especially when you have to go guarding right up close because the boss is hard of hearing. I've got the money together to pay off my parents' debt to him another 5 or 6 years. I suppose that's definitely what I'll do. That's when I'll make the big change. First of all, though, I've got to get up. My train leaves at 5. Had the alarm clock not, and he looked over at the alarm clock ticking on the chest of drawers. Heaven, he thought. It was 6:30, and the hands were quietly moving forwards. It was even later than 6:30, more like 6:45. He could see from the bed that it had been set for 4 o'clock, as it should have been. It certainly must have rung. Yes, but was it possible to quietly sleep through that? What about if he reported sick furniture rattling noise? True, he had not slept peacefully, but probably all the more deeply because of that. What should he do now? The next train went at 7. If he were to catch that, he would have to rush like mad. And the collection of samples was still not packed, and he did not at all feel particularly fresh and lively. And even if he did catch the train, he would not avoid his boss's anger, as the office assistant would have been there to see the 5 o'clock train go. He would have put in his report about Gregor's not being there a long time ago. The office assistant was the boss's man. spineless, and with no understanding